Today we're going to be talking about the vast unknown deemed space and how we believe that it was formed with a little sprinkle of mass death and the end of all that we know. So, the way that we believe it was formed, the Big Bang, right? So, about 13.7 billion years ago, there was just it's theorized there was just one atom. Probably hydrogen because it only has one neutron and one proton, so pretty easy to think that it would exist, not that crazy. But then more and more started forming, like helium, and the helium and hydrogen managed to form the first star. Afterwards the planets were created, then the creation of planets and stars meant there were solar systems, then solar systems formed galaxies, and the galaxies formed the universe, and on and on and on and on and on. So what about our sun and our solar system, all that fancy jazz? So the sun was probably formed about 4.6 billion years ago. The Earth was formed about 100 million years afterwards. 300 million years later, the earliest life was formed. Nearly a billion years after that, cells started to photosynthesize. And about 160,000 years ago, we had man.
Hamburger.
So, what do we actually know about our solar system at the moment? So, we have 8 planets, 5 dwarf planets, and the sun. Pretty obvious. So the sun is just a big ass ball of heat and plasma. It burns at about 5,505 degrees Celsius, and every planet orbits around it, like in this image. And when they orbit, they're in the order I just shown you. So Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And you've obviously got the other dwarf planets, but the most notable is Pluto, because everyone knows that it was once a planet, and then everyone was like, yeah, no, screw it, he's too short, he's a little baby man, little baby planet, little noob. Then each planet has this thing called a moon which goes around it, which is just a big-ass rock, pretty much. And in order of most to least, we have Saturn with 19, Jupiter with 16, Uranus with 15, Neptune with 8, Mars with 2, and finally Earth and Pluto both have 1 moon. Some of them are made out of gas as well, like Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. Alright, then you've got multiple solar systems forming galaxies, and multiple galaxies form the universe. And the universe is forever expanding, but how do we know? There's a funny little wacky thing called redshift. And we know what redshift is from probes and all that jazz, but basically as light travels, it changes colour. Like, think of like a prism. As light goes through a glass prism, it changes. So the more like red a colour is, the further away it is. So that's why, if you think about it, that's also why sunsets are more orange than at midday or noon. And we managed to create this photo. So the blue represents what's close, and the red represents what's far. So because the light's travelling a further distance, it's more red. So there's obviously a change in distance, allowing us to conclude the universe is forever expanding. But what's actually filling the space? Well, more galaxies, more solar systems and stars. But what are stars, again? A ball of plasma held together by its own gravitational force. And theorized to be the centre of all solar systems. But how do they exist? Why? So a star is born in a big-ass cloud of dust that just gets tossed around across galaxies. For example, this would be the Orion Nebula. Inside of these clouds, there's like turbulence and forms knots, and these knots form. Once they've formed, the gas and dust that surrounds it sort of collapses in on itself by its own gravitational pull, because it weighs so much. Because the amount of gas and dust, it sort of just pulls itself in. And it forms a protostar, which is the core of a normal star. Pretty simple. I like how I'm just sat here reading all of this off of a really obvious script, just here. And then you just got the cheat sheet, Konar Leisman. He just knows everything. A little baby man, little baby did. What about the old quasar though? The old black hole? All that jazz. Here's an example of one. What do they do though? They consume, they eat, they hunt. the biggest one, pretty thick, bit of a big boy called Tun 618. Here's an image. So in that photo, the little tiny white dot in the middle, that's our solar system. It's also 66 billion times heavier than the sun. Keep in mind though as well, just to scale even more, it's because of light taking time to travel. This photo or like representation is about billions of years old scale-wise. Chances are it's a bit bigger, sadly for you. But now that we've covered all the fun stuff, let's cover how we're all going to die. First we've got the big freeze. Here's a demonstration.
早上好，中国！现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋。
So the main theory around it, because it actually does have evidence, it's the only one which actually has evidence behind it, which is that the universe is warm as it expands. As it keeps expanding, the heat's transported with it, like the edge of the universe is the hottest part. Right? So if it keeps going off, that means that the centre's going to start getting colder. So everyone's just going to freeze, and all the planets are just going to freeze. And, yeah, it's not going to go well. But then we got the big rip. No. It is not Null Dazel. It's where the universe rips apart. Pretty lit. There's no evidence this will happen. L. Right. So, there's no evidence. It's just saying, like, oh yeah, eventually it's just gonna get so big that it just tears. Which I don't think is probably gonna happen. But then we got the most fun one. The Big Crunch.
Oh, hey. I'm just about to go to bed. I know we couldn't Skype tonight, but that's alright. Good night, girl. I'll see you tomorrow.
So the Big Crunch is pretty much the idea that there's like a cycle to the universe where it just expands, and it just collapses back in, then it expands, collapses back in. It just does that for however long, and that's the main basis of parallel universes, because how many times have we been through this? How many times have we all existed and then died? We'll never know. But it's called the Big Crunch because it's like paper, because you crunch it and then you unfold it, right? But it's just a bit cringe, isn't it? Just everyone just dying repeatedly. Space be like, I'ma start over. Okay, so that's pretty much all that I wanted to cover. That's all you're gonna get, you little losers, little babies. So let me send it off with this.
Goodbye!